Maya Chen sat in the corner of the massive transport ship's common area, her small frame almost disappearing into the oversized chair. Around her, the other recruits from various worlds laughed and boasted about their combat achievements. The Galactic Defense Academy only accepted the best warriors from each planet, and everyone here had earned their place through bloodshed and victory. Everyone except Maya, it seemed. She was human, which already made her an oddity. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Union, and humans were still viewed as weak newcomers by most species. Maya made it worse by being quiet, small, and seemingly harmless. While the other recruits showed off scars from battles with space pirates or territorial wars, Maya had no visible marks of combat experience. Commander Thane, a towering reptilian corvan with scales that gleamed like black metal, walked through the transport reviewing files on his datapad. His yellow eyes swept over each recruit, sizing them up with the practiced gaze of someone who had trained warriors for decades. When his gaze fell on Maya, his expression shifted to one of confusion. "Human," he called out, his voice a low rumble that made conversation stop. "Chen, Maya, step forward." Maya stood slowly and walked to the center of the room. Every eye in the transport was on her now. She could feel the amusement radiating from her fellow recruits. The Zentarian twins, Vex and Hex, exchanged glances and smirked. Their blue skin rippled with barely contained energy that could level buildings. Beside them, Grimjaw, a massive Ursid warrior covered in battle scars, let out a low chuckle that sounded like grinding stone. "Your file says you have no formal military training," Commander Thane said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "No documented combat experience, no victories in planetary conflicts, yet somehow you scored in the top percentile on all Academy entrance exams." He looked down at her, his height advantage making her seem even smaller. "Care to explain how a quiet human girl with no background managed to outperform warriors who have been fighting since they could walk?" Maya looked up at him with calm, dark eyes. "I study hard, sir." The room erupted in laughter. Vex slapped his knee while Hex nearly fell off his chair. Grimjaw's rumbling laughter made the floor vibrate. Even some of the more serious recruits cracked smiles. Commander Thane's expression didn't change. "Study hard," he repeated slowly. "And tell me, what exactly did you study that prepared you for the Academy's combat requirements?" "History, sir. Military tactics. Combat footage from various conflicts across the galaxy." Maya's voice remained steady despite the continued snickering around her. "I watched a lot of videos." This brought another wave of laughter, louder than before. Someone in the back called out, "She watched videos! That's precious!" Another voice added, "Maybe she'll defeat the enemy with a strongly worded essay." Commander Thane raised a clawed hand, and the laughter died instantly. "Videos," he said, his tone unreadable. "And you believe watching others fight has prepared you for actual combat?" "Not exactly, sir, but it helped me understand patterns. How different species fight, their strengths, their weaknesses, how they think during combat." Maya paused, seeming to consider her next words carefully. "Most warriors fight with instinct and emotion. That makes them predictable." The room had gone completely silent now. The casual mockery was replaced by something sharper, more focused. Grimjaw leaned forward in his seat, his small black eyes fixed on Maya with new interest. Commander Thane studied her for a long moment. "Predictable," he said finally. "And you believe you are not?" "I don't know, sir. I've never been in a real fight." The honesty of the statement seemed to catch everyone off guard. There was no bravado, no false confidence. Just a simple admission that somehow made her seem more dangerous rather than less. "Well," Commander Thane said, closing his datapad with a sharp click, "that will change soon enough. The Academy has a way of separating the warriors from the pretenders. We'll see if your video education serves you better than experience serves everyone else here." He turned to address the room. "We arrive at the academy in 6 hours. I suggest you all get some rest. Tomorrow, your real education begins. And some of you," his gaze swept over Maya one last time, "may find that what you thought you knew about combat was entirely wrong." As the recruits began to disperse to their quarters, Maya remained standing in the center of the room for a moment longer. She could feel eyes on her, some curious, others dismissive. The Centaurian twins whispered to each other in their native language, occasionally glancing in her direction. Grimjaw stood and stretched, his massive frame blocking out the artificial lights above. "Little human," he said, his voice like distant thunder, "you speak of patterns and predictability. What pattern do you see in me?" Maya looked up at him, studying his scarred hide and the way he carried his bulk. "You're a brawler. You rely on strength and intimidation. You probably charge straight forward and overpower your enemies before they can think of a strategy. It's worked for you so far because few beings can match your physical power." Grimjaw's expression darkened. "And what weakness do you see in that pattern? It only works against enemies who fight the way you expect them to. Against someone who doesn't engage you directly, who uses your momentum against you, your strength becomes a disadvantage. You're built for war, but war has rules. Combat doesn't always follow those rules." The big warrior stared at her for several heartbeats, then threw back his head and laughed. But this laugh was different from his earlier mockery. This one held respect and perhaps a touch of concern. "You may be more interesting than you appear, little human. I look forward to seeing if your theories hold up when someone is trying to kill you." Maya nodded politely. "So do I." As she walked toward her assigned quarters, Maya passed by one of the transport's observation windows. The academy station grew larger in the distance, a massive structure that looked more like a weapons platform than a school. Ships of every size and design docked at its numerous ports, bringing recruits from across the galaxy. She placed her small hand against the cool metal of the window and studied the station's defensive arrangements. Even from this distance, she could see the patterns in the patrol routes. The overlapping fields of fire, the weak points that any attacker would need to exploit. It was all there in the design, if you knew how to look. Maya had been looking for a very long time. Every video she had studied, every combat scenario she had analyzed, had taught her something new about how beings fought and died in the vacuum of space. She understood the theory behind warfare in ways that most of the recruits around her never would. What she didn't know was whether understanding would be enough when theory met reality. Tomorrow would begin to answer that question. The Academy was famous throughout the galaxy for its brutal training methods. Only 60% of recruits graduated, and many of those who failed didn't survive the process. The instructors believed that only warriors who could face death and emerge victorious deserved to protect the galaxy. Maya had no illusions about what awaited her. She was small, weak by galactic standards, and had never hurt another living being in her life. By every measure that mattered to military thinking, she was the least qualified recruit on the transport. But she had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. 3 years watching, learning and understanding how warriors thought and moved and died. She had studied every species in the galaxy, learned their fighting styles, their cultural approaches to combat, their biological limitations. Most importantly, she had learned that in a galaxy full of warriors who fought with honor and tradition, sometimes the most dangerous opponent was the one who fought with pure, calculated efficiency. The transport shuddered slightly as it began its final approach to the docking bay. Through the window, Maya could see other transports arriving, each one carrying more recruits who believed they understood what combat meant. Soon, they would all learn together whether their assumptions about strength and victory were correct. Maya smiled for the first time since boarding the transport. It was a small expression, easily missed by anyone not paying close attention. But there was something in that smile that would have worried Commander Thane had he seen it. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that no one else had figured out yet. The Galactic Defense Academy's main training complex stretched across an artificial moon, its facilities carved deep into the rock and metal core. Maya's first week had been a blur of physical conditioning, weapons training, and tactical lectures. She struggled with the physical aspects, finishing last in most endurance tests and barely managing the minimum requirements for strength training. Her fellow recruits had quickly dismissed her as a liability. The mockery from the transport had evolved into casual indifference. They worked around her during team exercises, assuming she would fail and planning accordingly. Maya didn't complain or try to prove herself. She watched, listened, and learned. The Academy's training philosophy was built on escalation. Each week brought more challenging scenarios, more dangerous weapons, and higher stakes. By the third week, recruits were using live ammunition in combat simulations. By the fourth week, some had been seriously injured. 2 had been sent home with permanent disabilities. Maya survived each challenge by the smallest margins possible. She never won, never dominated, never stood out. She just barely passed each test with quiet determination and what seemed like remarkable luck. Her instructors noted her persistence, but rated her chances of graduation as poor. On the 5th week, everything changed. The challenge was called the Crucible. Each recruit had to face a series of combat scenarios alone, with no backup and no second chances. The scenarios were drawn randomly from actual conflicts across the galaxy. Some recruits would face pirates in asteroid fields. Others would defend civilian ships from raiders. A few might find themselves in the middle of planetary invasions. The scenarios were designed to test everything the recruits had learned: combat skills, tactical thinking, leadership, and the ability to make life-or-death decisions under pressure. Most importantly, they tested whether a recruit could kill when killing was necessary. Maya drew scenario designation 7B42B, Escort Protection. She would be assigned to protect a civilian transport carrying refugees from a war zone. Intelligence suggested the transport would be attacked by Kralion death squads, known for taking prisoners for their slave markets. The simulation chamber was a perfect replica of a small escort ship's combat center. Maya sat alone at the tactical console, watching the refugee transport lumber through the asteroid field ahead of her. Her ship was fast and well-armed, but built for speed rather than prolonged combat. The refugees were defenseless, their ship barely capable of faster-than-light travel. For the first hour, nothing happened. Maya monitored sensors, checked weapon systems, and maintained communication with the refugee ship. Her calm voice guided them through the safest path between the asteroids, while she scanned for threats. The Kralians came without warning. 6 attack ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a perfect ambush formation. They had positioned themselves to cut off the refugee ship's escape route while staying out of Maya's immediate firing range. It was a textbook maneuver, executed by warriors who had performed this type of raid hundreds of times. Maya watched the tactical display as the enemy ships moved into position. She said nothing, her expression unchanged as she analyzed their formation and approach vectors. In the Academy's observation room, instructors leaned forward to watch her response. This was the moment that separated warriors from failures. Most recruits would charge forward, trying to engage all 6 ships at once. The brave ones would sacrifice themselves to buy the refugees time to escape. The smart ones would try to outmaneuver the attackers and pick them off one by one. All of these approaches had one thing in common. They assumed a fair fight was necessary. Maya did something different. She activated her ship's distress beacon. Within seconds, automated messages flooded every communication frequency in the system. Emergency broadcasts identifying her as a galactic defense escort Under attack by Kralion raiders. Requests for immediate assistance from any military vessels in the area. Detailed tactical reports of enemy positions and capabilities. The Kralians immediately tried to jam the transmissions, but Maya had already shifted frequencies twice. Her messages were propagating through the system's communication network faster than the enemy could shut them down. In a real scenario, any military ships within 3 hours travel time would be racing to assist. But this was a simulation. No help was coming. The instructors waited to see what she would do next. Maya opened a communication channel to the lead Kralion ship. Her voice was steady and professional as she spoke in perfect Kralion dialect. Kralion raiders, this is Escort 7742. I have transmitted your fleet positions and tactical signatures to Galactic Defense Command. Military response is inbound. You have 30 minutes to withdraw before they arrive. There was a long silence. Then the Kralion commander's voice crackled over the channel, speaking in heavily accented standard. Little escort ship, you lie. No military vessels are in this system. Surrender the refugees and we will allow you to escape. I am not lying about the distress call, Maya replied calmly. Check your sensor logs. Every communication in this system has been recorded and transmitted. Galactic Defense now has detailed scans of your ships, your weapons, and your tactical preferences. Even if you defeat me and take the refugees, you will be hunted for the rest of your lives. Another pause. Maya watched her tactical display as the Kralion ships hesitated in their approach. She could see their formation wavering as the commander considered the implications. Furthermore, Maya continued, I should inform you that this refugee transport is carrying survivors from the Alterian colony. Specifically, it's carrying the families of Alterian military officers who died defending their world from Kralion raids. The lie was smooth and completely believable. Maya had studied enough refugee movements to know that Alterian survivors were being evacuated through this route. The Kralians would have no way to verify her claim, but they would know that taking military families would bring down the full wrath of the Alterian Defense Force. You expect us to believe that coincidence? The Kralion commander asked, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Check the passenger manifest I'm transmitting now, Maya said, sending a fabricated document she had created while talking. The manifest showed dozens of names with military designations and family connections. Colonel Thane's widow and children are aboard that transport. General Vorthak's entire family. Do you really want to explain to your clan leaders why the Alterians have declared blood vendetta against all Kralions? The tactical display showed the enemy ships pulling back slightly. Maya pressed her advantage. I have a proposal, she said. This system has 3 other transport routes being used by actual smugglers carrying valuable cargo. I can provide you with their schedules and security arrangements. Real profits, with no military complications. All I ask is that you allow these refugees to continue to their destination. She transmitted a data package containing real intelligence about smuggling operations in nearby systems. The information was publicly available if you knew where to look, but it was detailed and accurate enough to be valuable. The Kralion commander was silent for nearly 2 minutes. Maya waited patiently, watching the tactical display as the enemy ships maintained their positions, but made no aggressive moves. Finally, the commander's voice returned. You are either very clever or very foolish, little escort. We will consider your offer. But if you have deceived us about the military response, we will remember your ship's signature. We will find you. I understand, Maya replied. You have 23 minutes until the first response ships arrive. I recommend you make your decision quickly. The Kralion ships held position for another minute, then began to withdraw. One by one, they jumped back to faster-than-light travel until the tactical display showed only Maya's escort ship and the refugee transport. Escort 7742, this is Refugee Transport New Hope, came the grateful voice of the transport's captain. I don't know how you did that, but you just saved 800 lives. We owe you everything." Maya closed the communication channel and sat back in her chair. Around her, the simulation chamber's lights dimmed as the scenario ended. The tactical display faded, replaced by the Academy's evaluation interface. In the observation room, the instructors sat in stunned silence. None of them had seen anything like what they had just witnessed. Maya had faced 6 enemy ships without firing a single shot. She had turned a hopeless military scenario into a negotiation, then into a victory that left everyone alive and unharmed. Commander Thane stood slowly, his expression unreadable as he watched the recordings of Maya's performance. "Run full analysis on everything she transmitted," he ordered. "I want to know where she got that intelligence data and how she fabricated those documents so quickly." The analysis took 6 hours. When it was complete, the results were disturbing. Every piece of information Maya had used was publicly available, scattered across thousands of databases and communication intercepts. She had assembled it all in real time, creating believable lies supported by verifiable facts. Her understanding of Kralian culture, military protocols, and communication procedures was flawless. "Sir," one of the analysis instructors reported, "she didn't just make this up as she went along. She had contingency plans. The data package she transmitted contained 12 different scenarios based on who the attackers might have been: Kralians, Zentorian pirates, rogue Corvan mercenaries, even human criminals. She was prepared for everything." Commander Thane stared at the report for a long time. "How is that possible? She's been here for 5 weeks. When did she have time to research all of this?" According to her personal logs, she's been working on tactical scenarios every night after training ended, sometimes until 3 in the morning. She's been building a comprehensive database of every potential threat in this sector of space. The commander's tail lashed behind him, a sign of deep agitation. "And the fabricated documents?" "The passenger manifest. Created using standard Academy software that all recruits have access to. She used actual military record formats and real names from public casualty lists. Anyone checking quickly would accept it as legitimate. By the time they could verify it was false, the scenario would be over." Commander Thane closed the report and looked through the observation window at the simulation chamber, where Maya had achieved the impossible. "She turned a combat scenario into an intelligence operation," he said quietly. "She made the enemy defeat themselves without ever engaging them directly." The other instructors nodded, but their expressions were troubled. This kind of tactical thinking was unlike anything they had seen from previous recruits. It suggested a mind that thought about warfare in ways that traditional military training couldn't teach. "What do we do with her?" one of them asked. Commander Thane was quiet for a long time. Finally, he straightened to his full height and made a decision that would change everything. "We see how far this goes," he said. "I want her in advanced scenarios starting tomorrow, and I want every engagement recorded and analyzed. If this human has found a new way to approach combat, we need to understand it." None of them realized that Maya was already 3 steps ahead of them. As she walked back to her quarters that night, she was already planning for the advanced scenarios they would throw at her. She had been preparing for this moment for 3 years, and the Academy was about to discover that their idea of advanced tactics was just the beginning of what humans were capable of when they truly put their minds to warfare. 3 months after Maya's impossible victory in the Crucible, the Academy's advanced training program had become something unprecedented. Word of the quiet human girl who won battles without fighting had spread through the military networks. Senior officers from across the galaxy requested copies of her scenario recordings. Military academies on 12 different worlds began incorporating her tactics into their curriculum. Maya herself remained unchanged. She still struggled with physical training, still spoke only when necessary, still seemed like the least likely warrior in her class. But now, when she entered the advanced simulation chambers, Hardened military instructors watched with the intensity of students trying to understand a master's technique. The final examination was designed to be impossible. The scenario was based on the Battle of Kepler Station, a real conflict that had cost the Galactic Defense Force 3,000 lives and an entire fleet. The test placed each recruit in command of a single destroyer facing an overwhelming enemy force. Previous Academy records showed that 90% of recruits died within the first 10 minutes. The other 10% lasted slightly longer before being overwhelmed. Maya's examination was scheduled for 1,400 hours on a Tuesday. By 1350, the observation deck was crowded with instructors, senior officers, and even a few representatives from Galactic Defense Command who had traveled specifically to watch her performance. The Advanced Tactical Studies Department had installed additional recording equipment to capture every detail of her decision-making process. Commander Thane stood at the center of the observation deck, his expression grim as he reviewed the scenario parameters one final time. The Battle of Kepler Station had been a massacre. An entire Zentaurian battle fleet had ambushed a smaller human patrol group defending a civilian station. The attackers had overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, and the advantage of surprise. "Are we certain about this?" asked Admiral Koreth, a distinguished Altarian officer who had personally fought in the original battle. "This scenario broke the last recruit who attempted it. He hasn't spoken since." "She requested the most difficult scenario available," Commander Thane replied. "When I explained that this particular simulation had never been completed successfully, she asked if she could review the historical records first. She spent 6 hours studying every detail of the original battle." Maya entered the simulation chamber exactly on time, moving with her usual quiet efficiency. She wore standard Academy training gear, her small frame almost lost in the military-grade equipment. She settled into the command chair of the destroyer's bridge and began her pre-battle checks with methodical precision. The scenario began. Maya's destroyer, the GSS Tenacious, materialized in the Kepler system alongside 2 other human ships. Ahead of them, Kepler Station hung in space like a small city, home to 50,000 civilians. The station's distress beacon was already active, reporting incoming enemy forces. "Destroyer Tenacious, this is Kepler Station Control," came the panicked voice of the station commander. "We have 12 Zentaurian heavy cruisers dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're demanding our surrender. What are your orders?" Maya studied her tactical display calmly. 12 heavy cruisers against 3 destroyers was hopeless odds. Each Zentaurian cruiser outgunned a human destroyer by a factor of 3. Traditional tactics would require the human ships to engage the enemy directly, buying time for the civilians to evacuate. In the original battle, that approach had lasted exactly 14 minutes before all 3 human ships were destroyed. "Kepler Station, this is Commander Chen aboard the Tenacious," Maya responded, her voice steady despite the impossible situation. "Begin immediate evacuation procedures. All civilian ships are to depart the station using Vector 77 Alpha. Do not acknowledge this transmission." She switched to her ship's internal communications. "All hands, this is the captain. We are facing overwhelming enemy forces. Our mission is to ensure the survival of 50,000 civilians. Anyone who wishes to record final messages for their families may do so now. We'll be transmitting all personal logs in approximately 3 minutes." In the observation deck, several instructors exchanged worried glances. Maya's tone suggested she was planning something desperate. The Zentaurian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 12 massive warships, each one bristling with energy weapons and missile launchers. They moved with the confident precision of warriors who knew they held every advantage. "Human ships," came the arrogant voice of the Zentaurian fleet commander. "You are outgunned and outnumbered. Surrender now, and we will allow you to evacuate with the civilians. Continue to resist, and we will destroy you all." Maya opened a general communication channel that reached every ship in the system, including the Zentorian fleet. "This is Commander Maya Chen of the Galactic Defense Force. I am transmitting the following message on all frequencies for immediate relay to Galactic Command, Zentorian High Command, and all military forces within communication range." She paused, letting the significance of her words sink in. Then she continued in a clear, formal tone that carried the weight of official military protocol. At 1400 hours, 12 Zentorian heavy cruisers entered the Kepler system and demanded the surrender of Kepler Station, a civilian facility protected under the Galactic Accords. When ordered to withdraw by Galactic Defense Forces, the Zentorian fleet commander threatened to destroy civilian targets. This constitutes a violation of the Galactic Accords, Section 7, Subsection 3, Protection of Non-Combatants. The Zentorian commander's voice cut across the channel, angry and confused. "What are you doing, human? Surrender or be destroyed!" Maya ignored him and continued her transmission. "Under the authority granted to me by the Galactic Defense Code, Section 12, I am hereby designating the Zentorian fleet as hostile forces engaged in war crimes against civilian targets. All military vessels receiving this transmission are authorized to engage these forces with extreme prejudice." "You're insane!" the Zentorian commander shouted. "There are no other military forces in this system. You're alone." Maya's voice remained calm and official. "Furthermore, I am implementing Emergency Protocol 777, which authorizes the use of any and all available weapons against enemies threatening civilian populations. This includes weapons and tactics normally prohibited under the Galactic Accords." She switched to a direct channel to her own ships. "Tenacious to all vessels. Begin Protocol 777 immediately. All safety limitations are suspended. All tactical restrictions are lifted. Target the enemy flagship and prepare for synchronized attack." In the observation deck, Admiral Koreth leaned forward with sudden interest. "Protocol 777? I've never heard of that designation." Commander Thane was checking his military databases frantically. "Because it doesn't exist," he said slowly. "She just made it up." On the tactical display, Maya's 3 ships began moving toward the Zentorian fleet. But instead of the desperate charge that everyone expected, they moved in a tight formation that kept them just outside the enemy's maximum firing range. "Human commander," the Zentorian leader called out, "you cannot escape. Our ships are faster than yours. Surrender now or watch your civilians die." Maya's response was to transmit a new message on all frequencies. "Attention all vessels. The Zentorian fleet has just threatened to target civilian refugees. This confirms their status as war criminals under galactic law. I am now authorized to use enhanced tactical measures." She paused, then added in a voice that carried absolute conviction, "All ships prepare for quantum torpedo deployment." The effect on the Zentorian fleet was immediate and dramatic. The confident formation wavered as ship commanders checked their intelligence databases. Quantum torpedoes were theoretical weapons that existed only in classified research files. They were rumored to be capable of destroying entire planets. "Impossible," the Zentorian commander transmitted, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "Humans don't possess quantum weapons technology. Classification Level 9 information cannot be discussed over open channels," Maya replied smoothly. "However, I can confirm that this system has been designated as a testing ground for advanced weapons systems. Your fleet was detected and tracked from the moment you entered the system." She transmitted what appeared to be detailed sensor logs, showing the Zentorian ships being monitored by hidden observation platforms. The logs were completely fabricated, but they were indistinguishable from real military intelligence reports. The Zentorian fleet began to spread out, breaking their tight formation as commanders tried to minimize their vulnerability to super weapons that didn't actually exist. Maya pressed her advantage. "Zentorian fleet commander, you now have 2 choices. You can withdraw immediately and report this incident to your superiors as a reconnaissance mission that encountered unexpected resistance. Or you can continue your attack and face the consequences of engaging a Galactic Defense Force unit equipped with classified weapons systems. You're bluffing, the Zentorian commander said, but his fleet's formation continued to deteriorate as individual captains tried to protect their own ships. I am required to give you one final warning, Maya transmitted. Quantum torpedoes have a blast radius of approximately 50,000 kilometers. Any ships within that range when the weapons detonate will be completely vaporized. I am beginning final targeting sequence now. On Maya's tactical display, targeting icons appeared around each Zentorian ship. The icons were standard Academy simulation graphics, but to the enemy commanders watching their sensor displays, they looked like real weapon locks from an unknown technology. Targeting complete, Maya announced. Quantum torpedo armed and ready. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal, or I will interpret your continued presence as an act of war against the Galactic Union. The Zentorian fleet held position for 30 more seconds. Then, one by one, the ships began to jump back to faster-than-light travel. Within 5 minutes, the system was empty except for Maya's 3 destroyers and the evacuating civilian ships. The simulation ended. In the observation deck, nobody spoke for a full minute. Admiral Koreth finally broke the silence. She never fired a shot, he said in amazement. 12 heavy cruisers, and she never fired a single shot. Commander Thane was staring at the tactical recordings with an expression of disbelief. She convinced them that 3 obsolete destroyers were equipped with planet-killer weapons. She made them defeat themselves with their own fear. The fabricated sensor logs, another instructor added. How did she create those so quickly? She had them prepared in advance, Admiral Koreth realized. She studied the original battle, identified the enemy's tactical psychology, and prepared countermeasures specifically designed to exploit their cultural approach to warfare. This wasn't improvisation. This was planning. The recording of Maya's performance was transmitted to Galactic Defense Command within hours. By the end of the week, it had been viewed by every senior military officer in the galaxy. By the end of the month, it had become the most studied piece of tactical footage in military history. The quiet girl they had overlooked had just redefined what it meant to win a battle. But Maya herself remained unchanged. When asked about her performance, she simply said that she had studied the historical records and noticed patterns in Zentorian decision-making. She had prepared contingencies based on those patterns, then executed the plan that seemed most likely to succeed. She graduated from the academy with the highest tactical scores in the institution's history. She was commissioned as a lieutenant and assigned to a small patrol ship in a quiet sector of space. 6 months later, when that quiet sector erupted into the largest pirate uprising in galactic history, Maya's ship was the only Galactic Defense Force vessel in position to respond. The pirates had 300 ships and 50,000 fighters. Maya had one small patrol vessel with a crew of 12. The engagement lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the pirate fleet had surrendered unconditionally, their leaders convinced that they had accidentally attacked a massive Galactic Defense Force operation that had been hidden throughout their territory. Maya had used their own communication networks against them, feeding them false intelligence about imaginary fleets and non-existent weapons. She had turned their strength into weakness, their numbers into confusion, and their confidence into terror. The video of that engagement became legendary throughout the galaxy. Military academies across hundreds of worlds began teaching courses called Chen Tactics, or Information Warfare, or simply How to Win Without Fighting. But the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humans. No longer were they seen as weak newcomers lacking in military tradition. Now they were recognized as a species that approached warfare with a terrifying combination of creativity and efficiency. Maya Chen, The quiet girl they had overlooked had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous weapon was a mind that refused to accept that any battle was impossible to win. The video that changed everything wasn't just a recording of a military engagement. It was proof that humans brought something new and frightening to the art of war, the ability to win battles that shouldn't be winnable, using weapons that didn't exist, against enemies who defeated themselves through fear of what humans might be capable of. And Maya was just getting started.